Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to take a little talk about my Autopilot project because lately there was a question whenever my project actually worked with the stock aircraft and not or it actually was only for the Alabeo Carinator aircrafts. For my latest version that was 2.3. And the answer was that for that particular version it supports just as from the beginning all the stock aircraft, more or less. Of course the airliners and such could be a bit tricky, but for the most part for the general aviation aircraft it would work, and for the airliners as well to some degrees, because there are some custom codes and the aircraft has been developed over time, and you have to understand that laminar research actually has kept improving their codings and all those things. So in fact in the beginning there was a lot of different codes and modes and such, and that's actually what I actually have tried to implement into my Autopilot project, so it was as simple as possible. And that's why you got the flight director, FD, AP, Autopilot engage mode, the yaw damper, AT is auto throttle, FLC is flight level change, heading is of course heading mode, nav is nav mode, altitude is altitude. Both altitude hold, where if it's lighting up green, you can set an altitude, or you could use the arm function where it would climb up to a given altitude. So you actually have both options for if you wanna fly it like the real aircraft, fly up to an altitude and press the altitude button, and then it has to be green just as it would after it has been armed up to the main altitude that you have set for it. VS vertical speed, APP approach mode. Sorry. BC is back course. The CRS2 text is to set the autopilot source to CRS2, and you can see that by clicking. CRS2 is down here. We got the source that actually is set, and you can open the GPS and you would be able to see now. If I press here, I have to say it switches to CRS, so you won't see anything on the GPS. However, if I press the text source, it would switch to GPS just like you would do up here. So you can see it works both ways. That you can do it. Press the button on the GPS, and it would actually reflect down on my Autopilot project, and that's because I use the stock codes. What I wanted to do with the experiment with the Alabeo aircraft was that for a long time I actually wanted to adjust the airspeed, because sorry, not the altitude, because a lot of Alabeo Carinator aircraft actually relies on the default codes, and that's great, and a lot of hardware users like that because they can actually use the Autopilot. That's one of the main benefits of it, because I remember when I started out with the hardware unit of Autopilot for Microsoft Flight Simulator, I was very annoyed because it was basically only the stock aircraft that it would work to. But in the world of FSX, nearly all developers go beyond the default codes, except from Carinator and Alabeo kept to those codes, and it worked that way as well. And that's one nice thing, because then you actually can buy something hardware and still get the immersion of, well, I have a hardware unit and I can adjust those things and such. And in reality, it is a lot quicker to manipulate that way, and that's basically why I started my own Autopilot project, because I was irritated in Explain 10. This project is started in Explain 10 for the clicking, as we don't have the mouse scroll wheel support at that moment, and even so today it's still slow, and in reality you have to do things quick, and in reality it's easier to just have your hand on the yoke or joystick, the stick, the flight stick, and then keep rotating the knob, as well as you can turn your head and such. It makes it easier in reality, where I actually think that sometimes people are forgetting that we are actually sitting behind an desktop screen, and have to do those things. That was why I wanted to do an easier way to adjust the heading. That's why I did this project, and give you a visual reference as well for the main modes, because it actually started out with me just manipulating those values down here that you have a visual reference of by mouse wheel support, and it works for all the parameters here, as you can see. With the stock aircraft, now it's in this aircraft, I could select another aircraft. One of the cheat things you can say is that because it is the stock codes of X-Plane, I can use modes that is not in this particular aircraft. I could use the flight level change, because in fact the coding behind is there, but normally you would not have this option, because you just have the buttons here in the cockpit to press, and if you don't have a flight level change button, well, yes, then you can't use it, other than if you have a keyboard command set for it, but you still don't have a reference if the mode is active or not. So this is some kind of keyboard emulation, you can say, where we're looking for some data references, and we see what they are doing, and we actually can adjust those for the things of that we can modify from the Autopilot, like speed and heading and altitude and vertical speed and the course and course 2. And this mouse wheel, that you just take your mouse and place it in the area for the particular thing you want to adjust, and then it would actually do it. Now it's just single clicks. If I click wherever I want it down here, it would update to actually go into, for the course, the speed and heading, it would be 10th at a time instead of 1 at a time, and for the altitude it is 1,000 feet at a time instead of 100 feet at a time, as you can see. I can switch between those. So I can in fact just go over and say I want to adjust this to 120, and I can just say, well, it should be 150, and I want to climb to 3,000 feet. It remains active until you just make a new left mouse click, then it would go back again. And then you might wonder why I have just implemented some kind of way to let it switch between slow and fast, and somehow I actually think a bit about it right now, but in reality I don't think I would do the coding for it, because I think this way is just as simple, and then you can actually adjust it as you like, because often for the heading or the speed and such, it's normally in whole numbers, so I don't see a lot of benefits of it, but that's personal preferences. But that was just the stock aircraft. Then we would move over to the Alabeo aircraft. And sadly now I don't have a script, so you could actually see the difference from the original project and to version 2 decimal 2 and 3 and up to this version that is actually 2.4. And do note that no one says that the autopilot should stay at this position. If I take my mouse and point it up here in the left corner and I hold down the left mouse button, I can drag it around my screen and place it wherever I want to. Do note that it is not saved other than for this session, so if I shut down now and click again, it would get back to the position where it was. But if I go up and let's say you get to a new aircraft, it would do the same as here, read our scripts, and then we are back to the stock position. But now we are in the Alabeo aircraft, and the modes works just as before. Where we actually had the problem before was actually to adjust the altitude. It was not possible for me to adjust the altitude other than if I moved over here and said that I wanted to adjust it that way. It was the only way, but luckily I found this little code that I was missing in order to get it working. Okay, and else it should work just like the default aircraft for this particular aircraft, I should say. I so far have not found any issues with it because it is only for the altitude that I actually have had problems so far. But of course, it has to be tested by a lot of people to find problems with it and such. And here comes the new part, because as you saw, this is version 2.4. I haven't made I'm not quite clear if I would continue to support another add-on. It is the RW design Cessna Mustang. I feel the project has a lot of potential, but the developer actually needs to do a bit of work for it to be completely nice to fly. I have it, and I've been on and off from the main aircraft because I really like it at some point, but the quirkiness that is in the aircraft makes it less funny to fly. The reason I actually got the Cessna Mustang was actually because I have been flying the default aircraft, yes, the small Sirius Vision SF50. I really like that aircraft with the G1000, and then I thought, well, when the Cessna Mustang comes out, I would like to get it, and I got it, but I have to admit that I have not flown it as much as I would have liked to. Basically because there are things that I feel is more accessible in the stock aircraft rendition than in this add-on. But I have let a door stayed open if things improved. But again, it is released here in 2.4, but at any time if I see more problems, I can remove it just as quickly again. And the reason I'm saying that is because the developer has made some modifications to how the main airspeed can be set because the aircraft has this flight level change and speed knob, and you actually should be able to adjust that main speed. But even though the aircraft do not have auto throttle, I have to say that. And that's a good note as well. Just because my Autopilot project can give you some kind of auto throttle function, use it with caution, because if you're flying in an aircraft and it has realism built into it, you can fry your engines and you can burn those engines off. Because if the add-on developer do not set a limitation for the N1, I mean it is, then it will not use that limitation, and then it can go nuts just like you can in reality. Give it full throttle and you can burn off. You can get fire in your engines. So use with caution. The best example I actually have is the 727 by GFlySim. I do not have the latest version, sadly. I really would like to have it, but if I took that and I just set the airspeed, I would fry the engines. As far as I remember, for the 727. I also had the 737, but yeah, the download isn't working and the registration also not working, so I'm not happy about that. I really like the developer, just not how the customer is treated in the end, so sorry for that. Because I have bought something and I really would like to use what I have bought, so. But that's a general thing for some companies. But what I was trying to say here is actually the developer uses the vertical speed wheel, and for my project I also could not use the altitude for this, just like the Alpha aircraft, and I found the code, so now it is capable to do the same as for the Alpha aircraft, and that's nice. However, I would have to rewrite my code exactly or close to how the main developer has built this, just with some modification, so you would actually would be using the speed for the speed and not the vertical speed, because right now as it is, if I switch on the flight level change mode here, you can see I can go over here for the speed, and right now you can't see it, but I'm scrolling my mouse wheel, but it's not doing anything. However, if I go over for the vertical speed, you can see something is happening. But it works just like for the vertical speed, and as you can see, it's not jumping one knot at a time, it is jumping a few, so in effect I can't set it for a specific speed that I want. You can say, well, yeah, okay, more or less whenever it is 108 or 110 knots, it might not make a big difference, but I guess it's some kind of the conversion from one to another. But it is no more different than in the original aircraft, as you can see. It's the same we are doing. So that's just one thing you have to know for this particular aircraft, that you would have to adjust it just like you would do in the add-on, because it is the same coding, just with some modifications, and I would have to split my main project that works well with the default aircrafts and do extra coding, and I don't want to expand my codings to implement such a thing, because then I'm rewriting just like the developer was rewriting, and then we have two conversions of the same thing, and I don't like that. So I think that would be the best compromise. Also because this main aircraft at its current state has some quirkiness, and you would know that if you actually have the aircraft. So I'm not gonna spoil that now or go too much into details about it, because if I did not use my Autopilot project and just used the aircraft as it was, you would see a few quirkiness here and there, and yeah, that's just how it actually is. Because yeah, I have my own problems here with getting the interference with the aircraft actually working and such. And even though if I go in here and say I want to disable my project, you would see that does not make any difference to the odd behavior here. Because the aircraft has a bit of its own life, let's just say it that way. That I can't really tell why. And I was sitting and doing things, and right now I can't. Oh, there we go. Now I can get it to work, but yeah, it is a bit trial and error here and there. It's not one of those aircraft where I just feel that I press this button, it actually does what I expect it to do. So at the moment it is some kind of beta, you can say, for the Mustang as well as for the Alabeo. I hope that I can keep up with the coding there, because I really like to support the Alabeo as well as hopefully Carneado aircraft. I really would like to do that, and even hope that the developers could see the benefits of it as well, because I really rely on those, because I'm just doing this, and I'm not making any money out of it, so it is basically something I'm giving back to the community, because I really have the passion for this here, and that's also why I actually has been beta testing projects and such, but also because I have some high standards for giving things, because I take it serious. But of course, I'm also not that guy that goes down in all realism. I'm not that deep in, but somewhere in the middle, you can say. So I hope that explained it better about my project, that it was originally made for default aircrafts, and it remains that way. that I just wanted to expand to some add-ons is just because now I have made my project. Why not try to get it working with some of the more simple programmed add-ons where they rely more on the stock codings than highly detailed programmed things, because often then I would just have to make the same programming as the main developer, and then of course it would have an impact, because instead of just making the calculations once, it would actually have to do it quite some times. So without further ado, I would say I hope you liked it and would try my project, and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.